before we get into it then, can we talk about this? Can we talk about this as well? Because this is another concern that I think is a fair concern. And I think everybody's got a different opinion on how this concern could potentially be fixed. So concerns about the standard pool not expanding. We don't necessarily know that it's not going to expand, but at the moment we know limited banners are not going into the standard pool, which a lot of people were not happy about, and I understand why people were not happy about that. There's part of me that's like, it does suck that nothing's getting added to the standard pool as far as we know, but at the same time, for me, if every character ends up just dropping straight into a standard pool after its banner, that standard pool starts to bloat, and it becomes harder and harder to try and focus on getting stuff, and it kind of just dilutes a massive, an ever-growing pool, right? I don't know if I necessarily want that. So, like, in my head, I was thinking, could we have a system where it's, you know, somewhat like the kernel system, right? Where we have a rotational system. Do you know what I mean? Where every set amount of time, a group of limited banners go into the standard pool, they're staying there for a set amount of time, and then they rotate out as another set of characters comes into the standard pool. So, like, the standard pool isn't just ever growing and bloating and becoming massive. It just rotates, and in that way then, because we start to learn how the cycle of characters goes into the standard pool, you can start to plan, okay, I want to save my limited pools for the next banner. I'm going to spark a character. I would love to get this character, but next character's the one for me, right? And you spark your next character, but you know that in so many months, that character is going to end up in the standard banner for a set amount of time that you can then save your standard pools and lock in on that banner, and that's a way then to attempt to get that character. Obviously, you're still relying on the luck there, but it's just giving you a little bit more chance to focus, because the pool's only expanded for a set amount of time by, I don't know, 3 or 4 operators maybe, and then it never grows past that, but it's always changing. So you get the first few months of the game to be able to get everybody from that standard pool, all the 6 stars, and then that way then, if you do start to get dupes, because you're going to get lots right, it gives you a reason to keep going in other than getting dupes, and you're getting stuff for the dupe shop, right, which is really good, but it's all about dupes, but that's a way to get dupes in that regard. And then, as I say, it's this rotating carousel of ever-changing characters, but it doesn't expand. That's just what I thought was an idea. I'm not saying it's the best idea. I was just thinking, like, Evernight, because we're obviously not getting limited banners going straight into the standard pool, right? So I'm just thinking, like, is there ways that could potentially adjust it to you know, to have a different way, a take on it if you want. So in the case for Arknights Zone, it's just better. More cons and pros though. I prefer diluted standard banner pools that can cook you with cool operators rather than 90% of standard banner being used. That's fair. That's fair. Like, there is that chance to get spooked by an insane character as well, right? Like I say, there's definitely pros and cons. The last thing you want is a standard pool that just never changes, right? And you literally just use it for maybe getting dupes to use the dupe currency to use on other stuff. But beyond that, it just becomes a boring, almost defunct banner, doesn't it? So I do like the idea of standard pools actually offering something post 6 months after launch or something like that. Because 5 years down the line, if nothing's getting added to the pool, who cares about getting those extra pools other than for dupe token type stuff, like, you know? Prefer characters getting added to standard pool works in AK because the old characters are still useful. The teams are bigger than 4 characters. Yeah, true. That's the thing as well. You have different amount of teams on field as well, don't you? So that's fair. Your last picks, I don't know what gacha rules you're talking about. I believe they will eventually start adding characters into the standard banner once the roster of characters is decent. That's a thing as well, because as I say, we just don't know what it's going to look like, do we? So it's fair. It's fair. Probably do something like character runs once, reruns eventually, and then get put into the standard banner. Yeah, that's a thing as well, because they did say that reruns are going to happen often, didn't they? So, yeah. Just imagine, though, like, your character drops, set amount of time, goes into the standard banner, finishes in the standard banner, and then it's rerunning again. There's so many options to attempt to get that character in various ways there, right? But I don't know if it's a good thing. Don't know if it's a good thing, you know? I do think that the three last banners being in the pool is a decent compromise. Yeah, like, it would be interesting if they did something like that. That out of the 3 rotating banners, they're all 6-star limiteds, if you will, but certain ones do just end up filtering into it. So one is kind of a true limit. I don't know. it's a lesser system than the original Arknights, right? But I think this is one thing I've come to accept, yeah. The games has to be monetized different. It does. There's definitely things where it's just like, yeah, it's clear. This is better in OG Arknights, right? There's so many systems to facilitate extra acquisition of things in Arknights that you're just not going to get in this game, right? And I think it's something that we just have to suck up. It sucks. It's a negative. But the game has to be monetized in a different way because it's a different game, isn't it, at the end of the day? Maybe we can start to see some of those things coming in at a later date as the roster grows, maybe. But anyway, let's see what this person just says then and see what they've got to say about it then. So some people defend Enfield's Gacha by saying it's a 3D game, so the high production cost justifies every new operator to be limited. At first glance, that sounds reasonable, especially since most 3D gachas do the same thing. Okay. I mean, that's fair. I think a lot of people do say that. I'll say it myself as well. But I can understand the counter-argument also. But the question is, why Enfield has to follow that precedent? Hypergryph already proved with Arknights that a generous gacha model can still be extremely profitable. Arknights has been consistently sitting near the top in monthly revenue for years. If Enfield's up making anything close to that, it's already a success financially. I think that's a fair thing as well, right? I think potentially that maybe there's just the worry that they won't translate that success over from Arknights and that relying on the old model will be enough for them to succeed and the need to maybe give themselves a safety net of it not being so good. But I think that's a fair point. The only thing you can argue is say, well, it's going to cost a lot more to fund Arknights Enfield, isn't it? A lot more. Profit margins, let's say it makes the same a month that Arknights does. Profit margins are just going to be way slimmer, aren't they? So they're probably looking at that. They want to keep the profit margin, don't they? Which at the end of the day, they're a company out to make money. So that makes that's the reason why they're doing it right. But they're not wrong in the sense that they still could be incredibly profitable earning Arknights money, or at least they're good months, right? Then again, as I say, maybe they're worried that that wouldn't have been enough and that it might have just been not as successful. They couldn't hope for the goodwill, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? I think they're probably giving themselves a bit of a safety net with going with a little less a generous system, if you will. You know, keep in mind they aren't shooting out exactly. The games are going to be running in parallel. And remember, Highmouse said himself, expect more Arknights games. Whatever that means, whether it's going to be box price games or anything, this isn't the end of the unit. They want a universe, don't they? So yes, Enfield operators are obviously more expensive to make than Arknights operators, but that difference is largely offset by player count and goodwill. True, but they also don't know that they are going to actually have a larger player base. They're obviously wanting it, the way they're marketing, that's what they're aiming for, but it doesn't mean they're going to get it right. They've gone from a space that they dominate, the tower defense gacha space. Other than them, there's path to nowhere. Nobody else is anywhere close, right? And we know the numbers, we know the size. Arknights dominates that space. They're moving from that space that they were the big dog in now into a space where Hoyo is the big dog and Wuthering Waves is this new up and coming, or well, you know, solidified game now. That's a massive game, right? So that's probably a thing that they're taking into account as well, right? Because, you know, we're not kind of just, we've got competition now. Arknights really doesn't have much competition in the type of games it is, right? So Arknights Gacha works because players feel like they can actually get most characters over time, even when they lose. That feeling matters a lot for long-term spending. Yeah, not wrong, I agree. Another thing people bring up is standard pool bloat, but even a bloated spook pool is better than what we are looking at now. And I think that's fair as well. I think a bloated spook pool is definitely better than a dormant standard pool that's the same pool 4 years after launch as it was on launch, right? And then all it literally does is you use it for duping characters to then spend that elsewhere, which wouldn't you rather just get spooks? Yeah. It doesn't look like that's going to be happening, at least at the start, or at least initially. Maybe that'll change. Or like I said, I do kind of like that rotating idea. I don't know whether that would work though. I'm just throwing it out there. So getting a random operator you do not have is still way better than pulling one of the same 5 launch operators you probably already own. True, especially when dupes only give small stat boosts, which makes losing feel. It's not really so much about the currency, I guess, you can take from once you've duped max potted a character. Right? I think that's probably what they're thinking about there. Why some people think, well, it's all right to have it there, but it's just a massive diminishing return in comparison to just spooking like some really good characters, right? Because, you know, getting spooked by just an insane character in Arknights is fucking dope, isn't he? Especially when dupes only give small stat boosts, which makes losing feel even worse as time goes on. At the end of the day, if the game is good, people will spend money, whether the gacha is labelled generous or predatory. The difference is how long that spending lasts. Players are much more willing to support a game when they feel the system respects them and lets them build a collection over time. Facts. We also know in the gacha space as well, predatory works, right? And maybe taking the piss a little bit does work. We see, you know, look at lads, the way they run their currency system, right? The game bangs money every month, doesn't he? So, but he's not wrong, you know. Goodwill is a massive thing when it comes to a game. I guess maybe they're just a little bit nervous the goodwill won't carry them, and they do need that safety net of a maybe, if you will, more predatory system. End of the day, gacha's predatory, right? Every single gacha game is predatory. So maybe, yeah, that's what they're thinking, that, oh, this is our safety net. Maybe over time things change when they're like, oh, actually, people are spending a fucking ton of money on us, right? So at the minute, they're 14, 15 days, I believe, in the beta, right? We've got three banners, supposedly. The 15, that's what made me lead to think that the beta was going to be 45 days long, but it's only going to be, what? 31 or 32, was it? How long was the beta now? 28th to the 29th, yeah. So, yeah. Do we know that that's the length they're going to be on launch? I'm not too sure. It might change on launch, right? They might get extended a little. I'm pretty sure they're not going to be shortened. If anything, we're going to see them maybe get a little bit longer, which I'll be totally cool with as well, because it gives you a little bit more time to save, doesn't he? For a particular character, then maybe go all in on the last day kind of thing. Yeah, it's a hard one, right? Again, I think nothing going to the standard pool is just straight up no positives to it, right? For the first 6 months, it's a good thing. It allows you to just go and collect those standard characters, max pop them, get all the extra stuff, all good, right? After that, it's just a stagnating thing there that's for new players then, right? That's the only good thing about the standard pool, right? Is that it's for new players, unless you have like a separate standard pool, but you have a beginner standard pool and the standard pool. Because that's, I suppose, the only argument of, well, it's good for people who start the game. They've got a basic standard pool that can collect all those characters. It's fair. But I think it's a little bit more worth building upon that over the time, right? And maybe having an extra freaking separate standard starter pool, if you will. That's where you go collect all your characters at the start, and then you can move on to the other banner as if you're new. I mean, like you come like 2 years after launch or something like that. But I don't know. I just thought it was worth talking on, because I think it is something that is definitely on the face of it, it's a negative, right, coming from Arknights, and I think most people look at it like that, don't they? It's just how they handle it post-launch, I think, is the important factor, right? And I guess we will have to wait and see. But I do hope we see some cool implementations of something going in there in some degree. However that happens, whether it's a rotational time-based thing or a season-based thing, or it's just over time, slowly, limited characters start to slowly filter into there and the pool just expands, but it expands slower than something like a game where it just literally banner ends into standard. It's like banner ends and then a staggered, you know, rate of characters entering into it, maybe. Or like how we have the 3 banners. Say you have like Serta first, and then you go on to Yvonne, and then you go on to Gilbert or whatever the character might be, right? Whether it's like Helga, Serta, Yvonne, let's say that, right? And then at the end of that period, however long it might be, not necessarily the banner length, the first character goes into the banner, and then the next time when those characters rerun, Helga's the second character, and then the first character goes into the standard one. So it's like, it staggers it even more, maybe. I don't know. Just thought. Food for thought. But yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think about that anyway. What do you think about the standard pool? What do you think about the potential of it not expanding? And how would you like to see it expand? I'd love to know what you guys think about that.